What the
The last time we saw Spider-Man, a metaphorical subway car had just dropped on his head, which leaves us to question, what does the third installment in the MCU Spider-Man series have in store? If you stuck around for the post-credits scene for Spider-Man Far From Home, and let's face it, as an MCU fan you did, you would have seen the bombshell that went off. Spoilers, Spidey's real identity was revealed to the world by none other than J Jonah Jameson, with J.K. Simmons reprising the role. While secret identities in the MCU aren't as big a thing as they are in the DC world, Peter Parker has always been someone who has kept his everyday life separate to that of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But now, that has all changed, and Peter has no choice but to watch his two lives merge at breakneck speeds. That also leaves Peter with a very big target on his back, and with him ticking off just a few villains, Peter may have his hands full in the 2021 Spider-Man movie, but what will he be facing exactly? In this video, we'll take a look at some of the biggest hints, news, and theories as to what the third film will be about, including the death of a loved one, 6 villains to fight against, and the return of a beloved MCU character. Prepare to swing through the streets of Manhattan with us as we look at some of the best potential Spidey storylines. Under ruse! Let's start with one of the most likely theories, the introduction of the Sinister Six. The Sinister Six are a group of, as you may have guessed, 6 supervillains, all of whom have it out for our lovable web-slinger Spider-Man. What makes their introduction so likely is the fact that they've been teased ever since Peter Parker's first full outing in the MCU, Spider-Man Homecoming. In a post-credit scene, we see a newly incarcerated Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, talking to Michael Mando's arms dealer Mac Gargan, who is more than likely Scorpion. Mac alluded to having friends on the outside, with fans going into overdrive at what feels very much like a tease for the Sinister Six. But who will actually be a part of the Six? Scorpion is highly likely to feature as part of the team, while Keaton may have his plate full with his return as Batman in the upcoming Flash movie. It's also highly probable that he will reprise his role as Vulture and a member of the Six. But could another character, who was thought dead, also make a return and join the Six?
Wait, and you're telling me this now?
While Vulture was sent to jail after facing Spidey, Mysterio met a much more fatal fate, with Quentin Beck dying at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. But did he? Mysterio has a power of creating amazing illusions and spends a majority of the film leaving Parker not knowing what's real and what's not. And it is highly likely that Mysterio's death was not. We know that Mysterio has beef with the Avengers and, like Zemo, wants to take them down from within. And the new Golden Boy and Tony Stark's protege, Spidey, is a big part of that. One way to do that is by getting blood on Parker's hands, even if that blood is not real. With Mysterio being one of the original members of the Six, and one of the characters likely to lead them in the third movie, could Mysterio's quote-unquote death be a plot to take down Spider-Man once and for all? Until we hear otherwise, though, we must tentatively believe that the character of Mysterio is indeed dead. Another villain who could be likely to be used is Kraven the Hunter. Kraven is a big game hunter who wants the biggest trophy of them all, a Spider-Man head resting over his mantle. Kraven is arguably the biggest Spider-Man villain who is yet to make an appearance on the big screen, and Marvel has already announced that they will be going down a route for Spider-Man yet to be seen in the movies. Furthermore, both actor Tom Holland and director John Watts have expressed their interest in Kraven. There may even be a casting in place, with the giant chunk of hunk Joe Manganiello reportedly interested in the role, and Kraven does seem like a natural fit for the story. Now that Peter's name is known to all, this could be the perfect inciting incident for Kraven to begin his hunt, and this could even bring him into contact with the Six. But it's unlikely that he would want to share his kill with anyone. Or maybe he would also want to add a Vulture and a Scorpion to his collection. But could one beloved character end up being collateral damage? With Peter's name now known to everyone, it's not just him that has a target on his back, but also the ones he loves. With the potential myriad of villains after Spidey, there is a huge chance that someone he cares for will get caught in the crossfire, and that could potentially be Aunt May.
Peter, you have to tell me what's going on.
That is, if the movie decides to focus on the One More Day comic as inspiration. The story is set in a world where Spidey's identity is known, and after a series of events, leads to the death of Aunt May being shot. This leads Peter going down a desperate path to save her, but more on that later, and we could see something similar take place in the upcoming movie. With the death of his mentor Tony Stark in Endgame, and presumably Uncle Ben before the events of Civil War, the loss of Aunt May just may be too much for Peter to bear and push him to the breaking point. Although this source material is controversial amongst the Spider-Man fanbase. And in this story, Peter and MJ are actually married, something which we are yet to see in the MCU, but there could be one story element from One More Day that might appear in the third movie. As we mentioned earlier, after Aunt May was shot in One More Day, a desperate Peter goes on a quest to save her. In order to do this, he strikes a deal with the demon Mephisto, who agrees on the basis that Peter gives him his marriage with MJ. Peter agrees, and as well as the marriage erasing, the memory of Peter as Spidey is also turned to dust, just like Spidey in Infinity War. Too soon? Yeah, he comes back. You saw Endgame.
Sorry, it was just so quiet.
While they may not go with this storyline, there is a big chance that the memory of Peter as Spider-Man is erased at the end of the third movie, although he might not look to a demon for help. Doctor Strange and his made-up name may have a deeper connection with the original Spider-Man trilogy, with director Sam Raimi helming the Doctor Strange sequel Into the Multiverse of Madness. But Strange could also help Peter out of this particular pickle. In the comics, Strange creates a spell that erases the world's memory that Peter is Spider-Man, and there is a chance that Strange could help reset the events of Far From Home in the upcoming movie. Also, while we're on the subject of Strange, there might be more that he brings to the table: the multiverse. I wonder where we're gonna go with this one. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a surprise delight, packed full of both humor and heart, as well as a lot of variations of Spidey, such as Spider-Ham. But could the upcoming MCU Spider-Man film also include multiple Spider-Men? While we don't expect to see Spider-Ham in the MCU taking on the likes of Thanos anytime soon, there is the possibility of another Spider-Man showing up. With the Doctor Strange sequel focusing on the multiverse, along with the fact that it's directed by Sam Raimi, could we see Tobey Maguire making an appearance in the MCU? This is definitely an outlier, and if it is to happen, it's more likely to happen after the third Spidey film, which is slated to come out in 2021, while the Doctor Strange sequel is billed for 2022. Still though, having multiple Spider-Man is a tasty prospect, and with potentially 6 villains, Peter may need an extra hand, or maybe even trotters. While the inclusion of Maguire into the upcoming Spidey movie may not be very likely, could we see other Spidey characters show up? Primarily, Tom Hardy's Venom and Jared Leto's Morbius. The Sony Marvel deal is confusing to say the least, and it's unclear how the Sony movies, such as Venom and the upcoming Morbius, fit in with Holland's Spider-Man series, with Sony effectively sharing the rights with Marvel for the character. There was a moment when the relationship between Marvel and Sony seemed to collapse, with a third movie originally cancelled. But with it back on, could we see both Venom and Morbius make an appearance? Sony does seem set on having Holland's Spidey meet up with Hardy's Venom at some point. It is an interesting thought, but there's also been rumors that Morbius is actually set in Maguire's Spidey universe. So it's unclear whether we'll see Morbius and Holland Spidey together at all. What's even more unlikely though is seeing Holland sporting a weird emo look dancing down the street, although never say never. If you're like me, then you're still not over Netflix's Daredevil series being cancelled. And while I am not emotionally okay, there is a slight glimmer of hope that we may see the Avocados at law once again. If rumors are to be believed, and boy do I want to believe them, fans suggest that we could see the Avocados, Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, represent Peter in court. For anyone who hasn't seen the show, they're not actually avocados. Although on a separate note, I've been working on a guacamole courtroom drama script called 12 Hungry Men, so if you are interested, just make a comment down below about it and we'll get to it. Anyway, getting off topic here, seeing Spidey alongside Daredevil is a tantalizing prospect, although a prospect is all it seems to be at this moment, with Marvel seemingly distancing themselves from the character. Meanwhile, guess I'm just gonna return to my couch and eat ice cream in my Daredevil pajamas while my friends tell me it's been 2 years, get over it. And boy, I wish I was joking here, guys. We've talked about a lot of potential villains in this video, so let's talk some more. 2 of the biggest Spidey villains who have appeared in almost every other screen adaptation but yet to show up in the MCU are both Doc Ock and Norman Osborn. This may be down to the fact that Marvel just don't have full control of the characters, or just that the characters are worn out. But could these two be secretly working in the shadows, pulling some strings? With the Sinister Six highly likely to appear, maybe Marvel will have Doc Ock lead them just like in the original comics. Or maybe we could see Mayor Norman Osborn working hard to make Peter's life hell. If so, who would you like for the parts? And no, Danny DeVito can't play both roles, no matter how much we wish he could. One big possibility is that this could be the last time that we see Holland to suit up as Spider-Man. With his identity compromised, there will be a gigantic strain on his personal life, and without a role model, could Peter call it quits and hang up the suit for good? Especially if Strange does reset everyone's memory, this could be Peter's chance to get out and start a somewhat normal life with MJ and maybe even go to college. Marvel seems to like to give their characters satisfying endings, and this would be a fitting ending to the character, going off like Cap into a somewhat normal lifestyle and living happily ever after. Peter's retirement could also make way for another Spidey, Miles Morales, who has been hinted at since Homecoming. Maybe he will get to live the dream and retire in his 20s, unlike me who has to work here at Screen Rant till the day I die. They will never let me leave. Somebody help me.
See, that wasn't so hard.
So, what do you think will happen in the next Spider-Man movie? Do you think that this is it for Peter Parker and the MCU? Let us know in the comments below, and hey, make sure to subscribe to Screen Rant for more MCU content. See ya!